look so happy.
Yeah. Are you serious?
Sarcasm.
Oh, I'll have to off my wall.
Okay, we are now on live stream.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to the Community Board 10 Police and Public Safety Committee meeting. Today is December 13th. On the agenda is application for new dispensary on the premise at 6918 Fifth Avenue, MRC 6918 LLC. Application for a new retail dispensary premise 455 86th Street, Hyatt Brooklyn LLC. Third Avenue, My Happy Weed. Hey. That's it. What was scratched from the agenda tonight was the application for new retail dispensary premise at 455 86th Street, RMAN Holdings. It is canceled. The person withdrew. And the application for a new retail dispensary premise at 1205 86th Street, FM Natural Leaf Incorporated. We're going to be filing for a 30-day extension on that one. Okay, so to start out with, the application was 6807 Fifth Avenue. That's MRC 6918 Fifth Avenue. Okay, we received only the application. We sent out the questionnaire and we did not receive it back.
Right, that's
Right.
6918 Fifth Avenue, MRC.
Correct.
Yes,
Believe we sent out a follow-up.
we sent, right. We sent email, we sent hard mail, we sent a follow-up, and we received no response.
And looking at the location, it is within 292 feet of the Islamic Society of Bay Ridge, which is a mosque and a community center. So obviously there's no questions for the applicant since they're not here. Is anybody here from MRC 6918 LLC on Zoom at all?
No, I don't see any.
Anybody from the public in regard to that?
Let me just see. And so if you're a member of the public as an attendee, you could use your hand raise function if you'd like to make a comment about this application. I don't see any.
Okay. Since we didn't have any response back on the questionnaire, and we did send out several emails. Motion,
I move to deny.
any discussion? Barring no discussion, all those in favor of denying? So moved. Any opposed? The abstentions? Looking both ways. Wow.
Which screens?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nick, I didn't get a vote from you. Do you support the motion?
I didn't deny.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda. Application for new retail dispensary premise at 455 86th Street, I of Brooklyn LLC.
Yes, if I may, my name is Andrew Cooper. I'm an attorney and I work with the applicant, Naomi Ortiz. She's on the line with us. By way of background, I'm an attorney. I run a private practice group at a law firm. I also work for OCM through the CHIPS program, the Cannabis Hub and Incubator program. I'm a volunteer and executive board member of the Justice Foundation, Moving Legacy to Legal. I've worked with this applicant for some time. We have confirmed the location as being compliant as best as we're able. 200 feet from houses of worship, 500 feet from schools or community facilities. We've also checked the DASNY tool. We're not within 1,000 feet of any site currently being negotiated by DASNY as a prospective site to use through the fund. I've worked, and like I said, my client and I have filled out the questionnaire. We've provided additional information and submitted that, including a notice of posting, timely. I will point out that these hours of operation will be reduced. I reviewed them and realized that we probably should bring down the hours from 10 p.m. to something around 8 during the week.
It was on my note.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to anticipate being,
Did you do 70 hours?
sorry?
You do the addition on the hours.
Yeah, we'll bring it down to obviously the 70-hour range as provided under the regs.
Correct.
And,
'Cause you-
and sorry, sir?
So, post hours now.
Oh,
Well, what I like to do is I like to engage the community board and talk about what you would like to see by way of hours, so we could find a medium. We realize the importance of being a good partner and a good neighbor.
You had
So-
your hours as Sunday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Thursday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Right.
Which all up to 80 hours. And I think the regulation is 70 hours, no more than 70 hours per week.
I think we have to have a minimum of 70 hours, but I recognize that community boards often want to maintain that 70-hour limit. So we're willing to be flexible in the hours.
You're proposing 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. You said weekdays, which would be Monday through Friday, right?
Correct. No, we would do that Monday through Thursday. Friday and Saturday, we would want to maintain the later hours, which are now 8, 10 to 11.
Okay, but I still think that brings you over, doesn't it? If we want to keep it to the 70?
Yeah, and we can submit an alternative proposal that brings us to the 70-hour range if that's what the board would like. And we can get that to you tomorrow. I just
Is the
want
reg-
to go over the,
Be within 70 hours.
I'm sorry?
You have to excuse us, we're all new on this and this is our first time really evaluating this. Isn't the
no.
regulation?
Yeah, no,
70
I don't. I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
regulation is fewer than 70 hours to be open,
Under.
70 hours, in other words.
The
you-
regs, well, the regs actually talk about a 70-hour minimum. They want you to be open 70 hours under the regs. So you can be more than 70 hours, not under 70 hours, but what we've done in the past and what I would propose to do here, subject to this community board's request, is that we would bring this to meet the 70 hours that are contemplated as a minimum under the regs. And just so you know, I understand that this is entirely new territory to almost everybody. So we try to work within those confines. I've worked with community boards to help them develop their own internal guidelines. So we're just trying to make sure that what we do is something that the neighborhood supports and the neighborhood and community board is comfortable with.
Yeah, I believe that we were under the impression, I'm going to refresh it by checking the paperwork, that it was a maximum of 70 hours, not a minimum of 70 hours. That would seem quite absurd to me.
Well, I think that that's what our discussions have been. I think that the board would not really prefer any more than 70 hours
Correct.
regardless.
So,
Well, the minute-
what we'll do is we'll commit to bringing it down to 70 hours. And I would ask you what your preference would be with regard to opening and closing, so we can try to accommodate that.
Okay. Well, I mean, can we hear the rest of your presentation and then
course.
when we do discussion, we'll, hash
Sure.
that out? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Happy to give you whatever information you'd like. So by way of the questionnaire, you've indicated, as you've put, we do intend to offer delivery services using vehicles. We don't know that we'll have a delivery plan in place and upon opening. It would be important for us to assess the need to develop that delivery plan. We do say cars because we feel that we're a bit uncomfortable with using concepts like e-bikes and mopeds while permitted. We're not comfortable with that, so it would be vehicles, but we would also consider public transportation if we were able to do that. I know you do have a local subway line, so we'd probably be able to do that. What we just don't know is we don't know what the demand is going to be for delivery at the present time. So until we can assess that, we're really not prepared to commit but we want to make sure it's in the application and the questionnaire, because otherwise we could technically be precluded. So we do want to do it at some point. We just don't want to do it right away. We will not be having any events. There will be no DJ, loud music. The only event that we could even call an event would be the launch, which would be the grand opening. And it's not going to be a block party. It's not going to have a DJ. It's very low key. And by way of the advertising, marketing, and labeling regulations, there are significant limitations as to what we can do in advertising and promotion, whether it's an event or otherwise. It also limits what you can do on the outside of a dispensary. It's not going to have any fancy colors. It's not going to have any advertisements. It's not going to have any big signs. It's not going to have any neon, nothing flashing. You're not going to be able to see inside the building. That's also prohibited. We're going to be compliant. We've built a security. Sorry?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the Office of Cannabis Management basically tells you how to do the signage. Can't be no more than 2 signs, no outside.
Yes, they're very strict. There's an entire section on advertising, marketing, and labeling, and the advertising regulations are very limiting. So that can be, you're not going to look and pass by and be able to target and identify the business, obviously, unless you know it's there as a cannabis retail dispensary.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, if I may, just in terms of your grand opening though, how do you plan on publicizing that?
Well, that's the other thing. We're really not able to publicize it using traditional means. You can't use print ads. You can't use social media. So the way you promote in cannabis is really limited to aggregating data and direct mail. So you would direct email people that you've been able to cull information from, using a variety of techniques that you can employ on various social media platforms. But these promotions and events are, it's a once a year and it's simply a launch. Sometimes the brands would participate, but it's not what you would normally think of in a launch. It's much more key.
You said you're contemplating one for this location. So I'm asking specifically, what are you contemplating for this particular location, really? Not, that's a broad
Well,
question.
like other businesses, it's akin to a ribbon cutting where you're just opening to the public. You're letting the neighborhood know that you're there and that you're opening. But when I say limitations, there are things that we can't do what you would normally want to do in order to promote a business. So it's really not, when I say a launch, I consider it an event only because it's not what you would think of as being normal course of business, but it's not something that I would describe as anything close to what you might think as an event. So for example, we probably have a ribbon cutting. We wouldn't be able to have anything outside the establishment. Security protocol will require us to check IDs, and everybody in this would have to enter the building. So there would be nothing on the sidewalk. There would be nothing outdoors. That's just something that we wouldn't be able to do anyway. But, and I haven't really thought, we haven't really developed that plan yet. Would probably be something.
Because I mean, there's a lot being stated in the negative, what you won't be doing. So I was just wondering what you were on doing.
I appreciate that. Until we're further along, I really wouldn't be able to describe specifically, but I tell you what we can do. So my goal would simply to give you comfort that it's not going to be an event that is going to be in any way disruptive to the community.
Okay, thank you.
As far as security, the regulations are also pretty strict, and we've developed, at least started to develop our own security plan with a security company, an equipment provider, and an integrator, which puts it all together. I say that because in cannabis, security is a very, very big component of everything you do. Probably as much as 40% is focused on security. That includes equipment, cameras in every exit access way, behind, sides, front of the building. It also requires you to have an alcove. So you would check IDs at the door. There'd be a second alcove before you could enter the establishment. The regulations, and will be compliant, also do not allow you to have any product on the floor. You can have samples, meaning you can have the packaging, but you can't have any real product. The real product is in a locked area in the back, so that you would see your what we call a bud tender is really your cashier, effectively. You would talk about what you'd like, what you might want. They might make suggestions. You'd then place an order. The order would then be given to a runner. The runner would go to the back of the house, so to speak, go into the lock cabinet, get the product, bring it back out. You'd pay, and then it would be delivered to a second area. At any given time, generally, there's 2 security guards who would be present. One would be at the exterior of the building. One would be at the interior entrance of the building. As far as concerns about congestion, the design is designed to ensure that people don't have to wait. If we were in a situation where there were too many people for the building to accommodate, we would do what's called a queuing system, which is they would be given something that would alert them, kind of like some people have seen at a restaurant. It would alert them to when their number is up. They would then come back. We don't expect in this area that we will have that issue, but it is something that we have in place just in case it ever arose. We would also, because of the location and the other businesses, have a security guard outside just to ensure that there was nobody, we don't want people loitering. We don't want people using. They're not allowed to stay around. They're not allowed to take the product out and use it in any way. The idea is they go in, they buy the product, they exit the establishment, they get into their vehicles, and they go home.
Do you have a floor plan?
We don't have a floor plan yet. I'm trying to get a floor plan from the landlord. I hope to have that in a couple of days, and I will provide it to you upon receipt. I did send in today pictures of the interior of the building that we took. I don't have a floor plan yet. As far as the employee manual or handbook, that's part of what we call standard operating procedures that we have built. We're working on that. They're a work in progress. I'm happy to share what I have. It's in draft form though.
Okay. I have one question though. Right. You're located at 455 86th Street. And do you realize there's a District 20 pre-K around the corner? Located at 8501 Fifth Avenue?
Yes, we've measured.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
it's more
measured?
than 500 feet and not on the same road. So
Yeah, I measured also. I got 353 feet. I didn't go outside and measure. I just did a Google measurement on it.
okay, well, yeah, and it's not on the same road.
Does that not?
We were discussing this earlier.
Because there's language that,
It says it has to be on the same road, 500 feet and on the same road. It's around the corner of the same road.
I don't know how that's defined.
I would say not.
Yeah.
It's a different, I mean,
One's Fifth Avenue.
I guess
one's
in
86th
common
Street.
parlance, right? But
Hmm.
it used to be sort of as the crow flies to the entrance, right? If we're talking about SLA, but I guess they defined it differently.
But SLA doesn't limit it to the same road.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a
So you
different
could just have
measurement.
them on one corner and
Um,
then literally on the other road on the opposite corner. That seems problematic. Like you could have something, you could have pre-K on 86th Street
Yeah.
and,
Oh, if it was on 86th Street, it'd be on the same road.
So we don't have a floor plan and the pictures now are just a gutted
Correct.
space.
Right.
we don't have hours.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to go through the hours now in order so you're comfortable. Like I said, we're happy to adjust them. Why don't you break out the hours to give me a 70?
Also, one other question. Mr. Cleveland,
Yeah, but
who withdrew his application, was also going to file at the same premise.
Yeah,
So,
originally he was because he is a card license holder.
Mhm.
And until the card program was resurrected, the card license holders were told, and we all followed OCM's directives, which is to reapply. So the intention was to reapply. When the card program was resurrected, he didn't need to reapply at this location. He had proximity
Is he
protection for
partner in
another
this?
location. Sorry?
Is he a partner in this?
No.
Yeah. Because I also went on the website for Hyatt Brooklyn,
Sure.
and it shows, let's see, our founders, Edgar and Giorgio. Giorgio is one of the person's listed as the owner.
That's correct.
And
They-
Edgar,
they're-
is the first name of Mr. Cleveland, is it?
Edgar?
Yes.
Yes.
So on the website, it says our founders, Edgar and Giorgio, had a lifelong appreciation for the plant. And
Right.
appreciation of participation by law enforcement over the past few decades, et cetera, et cetera. So on your website, it sounds like he's a partner.
So I'll give you the background so everybody's comfortable with what happened. So Edgar Clademan and Giorgio Matisse applied for a card. Giorgio was the individual who was eligible. In essence, he qualified under the criteria established by OCM in building that program. They applied, they developed their name, Hyatt Brooklyn, and they continue to work towards that expectation. When the card program was stalled and subsequently resurrected, they decided to proceed with their card license at another location in another area, and therefore we were able to acquire the rights and the name to Hyatt Brooklyn, and obviously the lease. So Edgar and Giorgio are in fact proceeding, but it is not with Hyatt Brooklyn. It will be R-Man Holdings, and they have a site in Williamsburg. So
Right.
they are not related to or part of this application in any way. And in fact, we're happy to provide you with a copy of the operating agreement for Hyatt Brooklyn so that you see who the members are. There are two members of Hyatt Brooklyn.
R-Man Holdings is in Williamsburg.
R-Man Holdings is in Williamsburg. That's correct.
But they're also Hyatt Brooklyn.
No, they're not going to be using the name Hyatt Brooklyn. They had it, but they're not using it.
Any questions?
Yeah, it's part of the challenge in this under these regulations because of the restrictive geographic limitations. There's a significant shortage of suitable compliant cannabis space. So oftentimes when people have identified a site that is compliant, at least compliant to the extent that it meets the 200 feet from houses of worship, 500 feet from schools and community facilities, and 1,000 feet from any other known retailer. For example, the ROs are the medical operators. They exist in some of the boroughs. There are 9 of them. They have 4 sites each in the state. It's not an abundance, but it's enough. And then you can use the DASNY tool to check to see where DASNY is in the process of or has negotiated a site. And then you're left with what you're left. And when you start to do the circles, if you've used the SLA tool, you'll see there are a tremendous number of schools or entities that qualify as schools that operate outside of a traditional school, as well as houses of worship that don't operate in a traditional sense of house of worship, and they're permitted to do so. So it closes up the market, and therefore sometimes you see several entities that have been involved in negotiating leases in the same sites. And then you also have to add in the fact that there are landlords that will not rent to cannabis, either because they don't want to, don't feel comfortable doing so, or because they're concerned that they have a federally insured loan, their mortgage, and there's language in the loan documents that says no illegal activity. Hence, even though cannabis is state legal, it's federally illegal. And if they're federally insured banks, which most are, the concern is that they can default you for engaging in what is deemed to be federally illegal activity, or at least promoting that or having that in your building. So it severely limits the available options to people looking to secure a site in order to submit an application.
So let me ask you a question just for my own edification. Are you allowed to accept credit cards?
No.
So no, you're not. You were allowed at times. It's arguable whether you can accept debit cards. Recently, most of the retail operators in New York have decided not to accept debit cards, and they accept cash or ACH transactions. We're hopeful that with the Safer Banking Act, which is now the new name of what we had previously called the Safe Banking Act, they will pass legislation that will allow banks or give banks more of a comfort level. There's no true prohibition against banking in cannabis. It's just hard from a compliance perspective. And as far as the credit cards, the only reason that we can't use credit cards or debit cards is because the credit card processors have decided they didn't want to. Ironically, in the unregulated shops, which we've all seen, you can go in there and use a credit card. So they allow the unregulated to use credit cards because they set up an account as if they're selling something other than cannabis. And then when the credit card processors find out, they don't do anything about it. Yet regulated shops can't use the same processors. So all the major credit card companies won't process cannabis transactions. It's nonsensical, but it's the world we live in.
Great.
Elizabeth has a question?
Just two questions. One is, I know you guys aren't like there's no dram shop law thing here, but you're saying people are going to be driving up, and, taking marijuana and putting it in their cars and then theoretically driving home. Is there anything you can do to ensure that they're not smoking in the car when they leave your shop? That's my first question. Then my second question is, you just seem to know a lot about this and I haven't been able to have a conversation with someone about it. I mean, what are you doing to prevent it being attractive to teenagers around the neighborhood from coming into your shop?
Yeah, so great questions, and I appreciate it. And what I will tell you is something that I say because I do work through or with OCM is that I'm happy to be a resource. I'm happy to talk anytime you guys want information. You can reach out, and I'm happy to have a conversation. So a couple things. Number one, limitations on purchasing. So the law says you cannot purchase more than 3 ounces a day. Sounds like a lot. They track you by your driver's license. There's technology now that allows the system to, we have a universal system work on a BioTrack method, which tracks the product. But basically the system that has been designed and utilized allows the entire system to track the number of purchases. So you can purchase 2 ounces at a time, a maximum of 3 ounces. That's number one, to limit the amount that any one person can purchase. Number two, security guards on the exterior will not allow you to leave and open the product and start doing it. If you buy a pre-roll, meaning what you can use immediately, you will be told to leave the premises and they will make sure that you don't loiter. Now, as far as getting to their car, I don't know that we have the ability to monitor what they do when they get in their car, but in past experience, I can tell you that generally people who come to the dispensary and this on-site sale, they leave and they leave and they drive away. They don't smoke and then get in their car and leave, and they don't smoke in their car and drive away. But there's nothing that would really literally prevent them from doing so. The third and to us the most important thing is to ensure that this is not made attractive to anybody under 21. So there's a couple of things that are done. Number one, the law provides that you have to check IDs, and the system will check. So you can't use fake IDs in the system. So that's number one. The other thing that is done, so one, you have to be 21 to even come into the building. So as far as being attractive or unattractive, there's not going to be any markings. There's not going to be any signs. There's not going to be Joe Camel ads or the Marlboro Man. Can't do any of that. So the other thing that we do is within limitations, we try to help support the movement through education. Unfortunately, we can't really educate and go to middle schools or high schools. We can go to colleges and we can talk to students. But I think your concern is how do we make sure that young people don't enter? Young people can't enter. If somebody under 21 was to enter the premises, unlike a liquor store, which would get a summons, we would be debarred, meaning the OCM would then take enforcement action against any dispensary that permitted somebody under 21 to enter the establishment. So in essence, it's hard to imagine that somebody would voluntarily take that chance. The thought is, well, you're going to have a lot of people under 21 who want to come in. They're going to be using fake IDs. We haven't seen that. But what we have seen is we've seen young people go to unregulated shops and not have their ID checked at all. So while they're unregulated and they're illegal as far as we're concerned, we would like them to at least check IDs and make sure that nobody under 21 was allowed to enter. They don't. We're required to. So in the big picture, that's we do everything we can do to try to prevent, well, like I said, they can't come in if they're under 21, so they can't purchase product legally, which is unfortunately why we need to focus on limiting or closing the unregulated shops, because we can't prevent them and protect them from the unregulated shops or from getting in and purchasing product.
Andrew, what about if somebody comes to the shop and is it visibly impaired? What would you do in a case like that?
We're not allowed to sell. So that's one of the security guards' roles, is notwithstanding the fact they may be of age. Somebody can't enter the premises impaired, visibly impaired in any way. So they wouldn't be permitted to enter. That's just protocol. That's part of when I talk about SOPs or standard operating procedure, that's part of this SOPs. That's part of the plan, and it's part of the security plan.
How do you prevent them from using fake IDs? You have, it's automatic, you do a scanner, is that?
Yeah, the system is the technology is pretty advanced. So it can determine whether or not the ID is in fact legitimate or not.
Would you guys be open potentially, I don't know if the rest of the board would be interested in this, but in limiting the hours between, like, shutting down between, say, 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. when there are a lot of teenagers on the street? And I'm wondering if that might be an accommodation that.
Well, the problem, we're trying to, we'll listen to anything. The problem is that it creates an issue with staffing. Because we would have, we're not going to be open long enough to have a shift. Remember, we rough estimates is we'll probably employ 20 full-time, or full-time equivalents as bud tenders. So the staffing looks like this. Bud tenders are the ones who act like as the register, at the register, it's more as sales clerk. You have 2 security at least. You have 1 person at the front. You have a day manager. Those are the full-time staff. And going from opening to closing. So to close in the middle of the day is not really, it's just practically impossible. But remember, this is not going to be visibly noticeable as a retail dispensary. There's not going to be any markings on it. It's not going to be anything that shows what it does or what it is. The only people who know are going to be people who just are told that it is what it is. And that would include anybody under 21. So I mean, if you tell me that this is somewhere that they walk at that period of time to get to and from, then what I would make sure is that I had security outside to assist or facilitate and avoid any congestion, because everybody's intrigued and everybody's interested, so they might want to stop and look. We recognize that. So we try to make sure that the protocol we establish accommodates that and allows us to effectively eliminate any issue before it becomes an issue.
I think the other concern is there are a great number of high school students who travel 86th Street from local high schools. We've had issues, during warmer weather on 5th Avenue and 86th Street, with large groups of teens. So there are, quite many who either travel to the intermodal connection point at 86th and 4th, take the subway. And there are large groups of kids who walk. 86th Street is the main, shopping hub in District 10.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to work collaboratively to try to figure out what we can do together to try to limit. The limitation would really be to make it less attractive. It's still going to exist. And to be honest with you, there are still unregulated, well, not so many unregulated shops in your neighborhood, but there is a black market. So we figure that by existing, we can help curtail that, although it doesn't work unless and until you have enough regulated shops to give people alternatives. Much bigger problem in many other areas. We're trying to make sure it doesn't become a problem everywhere else.
We have a number of illicit shops
Yeah.
operating.
Well, I don't know if you read Mr. Alexander's press release today. Well, today or the other day, I think it was. He said the way to get rid of the illegal shops is to put regulated shops.
Yeah. So, I don't want to sound like the voice of doom. I am somewhat critical yet diplomatic. It doesn't simply self-adjust. That's the mantra. We've heard that repeatedly from OCM. It requires more effort. It doesn't just happen. California learned that the hard way. So not only do you have to have a regulated market, you also have to have enforcement. I like to say regulations without enforcement equals anarchy. And that's true. So no, I disagree with Mr. Alexander, although I like him. I think that you have to do more than simply build it and they will come. It doesn't work that way. But
I
I
agree.
think that it's a step in the right direction because we do know, at least studies show that in areas where you have regulated adult use legal cannabis, the unregulated market does reduce. The problem is you have to be able to be price competitive. And I've tried to work with legislators to try to figure out creative ways to do that. So I proposed a flat tax and I do have a dialogue and then a graduated scale, because that way you can compete with the unregulated market. The only way you can limit them is to compete with them directly. You can't, people will spend more money for regulated product. They're just not going to always spend 35% more. So we'll see. It's a work in progress, but we do have, benchmarks. We have, places we can look to see how it's affected the markets in places like Illinois and Michigan, which generally are thought of as having somewhat more better defined rules to build social equity and build a regulated market than places like California, Colorado, or even Massachusetts. But our advertising and marketing and labeling regs are the strictest in the country. In fact, I've seen Massachusetts dispensaries put billboards up in North Country of New York State advertising themselves because they know that New York dispensaries can't do the same thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
So do we have the employee the employee in charge? Was that name identified in the questionnaire?
So you mean the employee in charge, meaning the person who would be the hands-on, we'll call it the regulations provide that you have to have somebody on at all hours of operation that the manager would ultimately with full responsibility for everything that happens. And Miss Ortiz is planning to be that person, and she's undergoing training to ensure that she's uber familiar with all the rules and regulations. It also requires us to build a team, because part of the way this works is that you have, pieces that you put together. So basically you have a CFO, you have someone who's in charge of purchasing, somebody's in charge of marketing, because marketing is difficult in cannabis. You have somebody, your controller, and human resources. So you do it, basically the model that we use often is have a manager that's there full-time, and then on a fractional basis, fill all of those other spots. And then the bud tenders, which requires training, just by way of, background. Bud tenders on average earn in the neighborhood of $45,000 to $50,000 yearly. And that doesn't require a college degree. It does require, usually we like a certificate, because it does require some training, including science and other concepts.
Well,
Ms. Ortiz will be the person who's responsible as a manager of the facility.
I guess in the Office of Cannabis Management, they call it an employee in charge, like in all caps, so like a defined term. And that's the person who's responsible for the staffing plan, et cetera. And then, of course, the staff are required to have certain education. They have to have certain training. And so really my question is just, again, more so with regard to this establishment particularly, because this application is for this establishment. What do you have in the works so far on that? I mean, because a lot of this sounds very preliminary. And although clearly we have not had many cannabis applications because we're just starting this, but, just going from, licensing. So for example, in New York, you would do, like a liquor license. Generally speaking, when the applicant comes in, we actually have something to review. We have a floor plan. We've got a little more well-defined security plan. Although I know that this is more regulated and more defined, that never stops the applicant from having a little bit more, right? So maybe it only requires, a certain amount of security. So my question really is, I'd like to hear the details of this business, unless you're saying you just don't really have it hammered out yet, is kind of what I'm hearing.
No, so a couple of things to answer. You raised a couple of issues that are important. So number one, unlike liquor, we don't have a license yet.
Right, but you have a
So-
plan, I'm asking your plan, right?
No,
So-
but remember, but we don't have a license. So in it, and because it is uncertain, I mean, this is but not even close to a certainty. I mean, when you talk percentages or statistics, so what we know estimates, my estimate of the number of applicants who filed applications by November 17th, presumably with site control, was about 2,500.
Correct.
They anticipate issuing between 500 and 1,000 licenses in the entire state. However, that also included card licensees. There were approximately 460. So who weren't yet operational. So if they give all those licenses to cards, there's going to be approximately, let's say, 500 licenses available to 2,000 applicants. So we're not at a point where we can say with any degree of comfort that we're going to be licensed. Number two, because they have this proximity protection issue and site protection, it's possible that even if we got licensed, that this site would not be available because somebody else knocked us out. And we don't know that because there's no tool they've built, although I do know for a fact that somebody's offered and gave them software that they built that would allow them to track all the retail prospective licensees that they gave proximity protection to. That way we wouldn't waste time in finding and negotiating leases, making them contingent on licensure, only to find out that there's already somebody there that trumps us and we have to move on and negotiate a new lease. So the investment in time and money is so significant without any likelihood of success that it's just not always feasible to move so far forward in a plan and then to put more money on top of the money you're spending on a lease and for other things. But as far as your question goes, most of what you've asked for is in two pieces. One, it's a site and security plan, which is where you develop your floor plan and the way you move customers through the site and the security components. No, we haven't done that yet. We haven't done that. And part of the issue here in New York.
No
So
guarantees you're.
Sorry?
Just to ask this one question, and I think I'm fairly bright, and I, was the chairperson of the police and public safety, and I did a lot of this.
She did.
I don't really know what we're doing with this right now. We don't have definite hours. We don't have a floor plan. We don't have an employee, and we have a discrepancy
No,
in
we've
the,
got one. We've got an employee.
Yes, he listed two.
okay. And we also have a fairly large discrepancy between the footage to the nearest school.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what we're sitting
yeah,
here
but-
rehashing what might be and what could be. I don't know. It doesn't seem like we
I
have.
do agree with your sentiment. A couple qualifications on that. The footage to the school doesn't really matter because it's not on the same block. It's feet and
not
the same
or.
road. So we're not on the same road. So it doesn't meet that
Right,
conjunctive
It's
and
on the
so
corner, right?
that, yeah, if it's on a corner, then it's
Then it's
considered
next,
both
yeah.
frontages, but it
So
just
if you
isn't.
turn, it doesn't
Right.
count.
But exactly.
Exactly.
But I do actually concur with what you're saying is that, so, in the sense of, you're right, you don't have a license yet. I mean, you might not even have a good chance at getting a license, but we are here, right? We are supposed to weigh in here on this licensee, this prospective licensee, and whether or not, we're at this location. And so what I'm really asking you for is information on that, because, obviously we're not passing on the whole system as a whole. There are laws and that, it's already in place. So what I'm really asking for is just more specifics about this location in particular. So one thing I heard, which was a specific, was, okay, we plan on, having an opening. And you answered all those questions wonderfully, but I'm not really seeing here, anything like you're basically what I'm hearing is, yes, we're going to comply with the law.
Right.
Whatever that might say. So in terms of advertising, in terms of record keeping, in terms of security, but as you know, a licensee can provide sometimes more than what's the minimum required by law, right? In terms of security, can, operate less hours than the absolute maximum permitted by law or the amount that we're allowed to restrict you to operate. Those are really the things that I'm looking for. And kind of what I'm hearing is that they're just not hammered out yet because it's not cost effective for your client to hammer it out at this point. Is that?
So that's actually not
in a
true.
nutshell?
That's not true. So what I do as a lawyer
Yeah.
and as a consultant is I'm the person who would be building out the entire security plan, site plan analysis, narrative, the standard operating procedures. I have them. They're not finished. I'm happy to share them with you. They will go into detail about a variety of things, including the whole security plan. As far as a floor plan, if you want a floor plan of what the design's going to be, you remember that requires us to engage an architect to start to work on developing those plans. I can give you an artist rendering of what the facade's going to look like, and I can give you something that we would prepare with regard to a floor plan, but it's not, it's not a floor plan it's not going to be a final floor plan because we didn't engage the architect that we need to do the interior renovations. But I'm happy to do that. And as far as the hours, I've redone the hours to come to 70. So I can give you those right now because, to be honest with you, we want to be good partners. I don't want you to walk away thinking we haven't given you what you want to or need to hear. And just to one point that you said, because the way I do this and the way my clients do it, or they don't work with me, is we don't do the bare minimum. Because the bare minimum is just what somebody decided was enough. We do what we know is necessary to accomplish a goal. So we go more than what is required. And when I talk about the number of security guards and the protocol, it's not the minimum. It's what we've decided we need to do to be comfortable. Listen, we've all had kids. We're all concerned about child safety. And in fact, I would make an argument that 21 is too young. It should be 24 because brains are still growing through that early 20s. I don't win on that. That's the way they said it. They established it. I can't change that, but I can change and do what I can do to be better. And I'll tell you why, because the way you succeed in this industry is by being better. And by being better, it means in part being a better part of the community, a more productive part of the community, even when people don't want you there. And I can, if you like, I'd like to go through the proposed hours with you now, if that's okay.
Well, actually, I do have a question. You mentioned that you do have a rendering of the front elevation. I think that would be of great interest just to see.
No, I said I can do an artist rendering and I can have it to you. I don't have it yet.
But
I can get it. But I listen, I can have it to you within a week or even less.
Okay, but I'm just, okay, but I guess my question is, with regard to specifics about this business, again, I listened very closely to what you were saying. So you mentioned there were 2 security guards, one inside and one outside. That's what I heard about security guards. Is there any other security guards you plan on having, is my question.
Yeah, so I can go through what I've built in the security plan, and it's a lot of detail, it's a lot of information. But I try to make sure that I have the information available that you need or that you want, and I'm happy to give that to you. I don't want you to feel like you don't have something you need. So just give me 1 second.
Can I ask a threshold question here? Maybe this is a dumb question, but
Go ahead.
I'm looking at this and number 22 says a licensee shall document, implement, and maintain a site plan. And I'm wondering if he counts as a licensee now or will
No,
be, it's not
No.
yet. This is not a.
We're not licensees.
That's what I thought was covered, but I just wanted to be sure because it seems.
Do you have a lease for the premise already?
Yes.
So it sounds like they have a lease contingent upon the issuance of.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the way it has to be done, because otherwise you have to start paying without knowing you're ever going to be licensed. So what sometimes landlords do is they give you a certain window period to get licensed, and then you have to pay certain money a month, or you have to start paying.
We're familiar with that kind of thing.
Maybe he doesn't know he could do it too.
So
What's that?
Just a crude drawing of the interior.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, you know, I think that what we're advisory and we are supposed to give our
Opinion.
feedback or opinion as a board on this specific location. And I do think that, look, you know, we're just the committee and, you know, we're still gonna have a full board meeting. And
Understood.
I think that a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions. So if, you know, we generally try to get that information, hash it out to present it to the full board, who will be meeting on Monday. So, you know, to have something like that, I think would be really helpful
Correct.
in order to expedite things once we get it in front of the full board of 50 people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
So-
think that would help now.
So the approach that I take is I try to be collaborative and I try to give you information. And if I don't have it, I'll prepare it and give it to you. Sometimes I usually have a little bit more time between this meeting and the full board meeting, but I'm happy to make sure you have the information that you need by Monday. And because I don't, you know, part of the thing is, you know, I want to overwhelm people with
just,
information. So I didn't give you the draft standard operating procedures. But I usually, you know, more prepared than most. So we've already been working on this stuff.
Okay.
So you
I
want
mean,
me to, so
It's just not forthcoming here. I'm actually hearing it from you. So maybe we should put together a list. Would that be helpful of like stuff
What we need.
that maybe we'd kind of like to
Yeah.
see and think would be helpful to move the meeting forward on Monday?
sure.
I mean, we asked for in our questionnaire, a copy of floor plan.
Can I comment
Go
on that,
Go ahead.
please? When we ask for a copy of the floor plan, it does not have to be an architect's rendering. It could be hand drawn by somebody.
Well, so the floor plan, well, we can get you, the landlord has a floor plan, but I thought what you wanted was what it's going to look like when we're done.
Well,
Yeah,
It
yeah.
does,
Yes.
it's understood that things might change. But as to the best of your knowledge now, what it would look like then is something that someone can draw by hand.
Yeah, and no, I'm happy to.
We're not asking
Excellent.
for an architect's input.
Okay, so
So
We would
it's
like-
pretty simple.
Okay.
What it's going
so
to
a
look like.
proposed floor
See?
plan.
Yeah, we'll prepare that. Do
If
you want,
If you kind of propose, you know, just rendering of the front, again, it doesn't have to be, we're not building it, we don't need exact dimensions, you know, just a concept of what the
Sure.
front would look like. I think it would go a long way in the discussion by the board to have something like that.
we have no problem in providing that either.
I also think that the number of hours, if you keep it to 70,
We rebuilt it, so I have it
We-
now.
We'll hash, yeah,
Right.
we'll flesh that, maybe we can flesh
Your
that
hours
out
of
after we
operation,
get.
right.
Just so you know, because I'd like you to have input, is we revised the proposed hours. So now it's 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday through Wednesday. It's 11 to 9 Thursday and 11 to 11 Friday and Saturday. That's a total of 70 hours.
Does anyone know when the peak traffic is around 86th Street of all of the kids there?
Seriously.
I would say between 1 and 3, is that about right?
Yeah, I was gonna say between 2 and 4, like,
Yeah. And maybe, would they maybe be open to taking lunch, say, between 2 and 3? You know?
He answered that question, but
Yeah.
it's not practical,
Yeah.
and he can double the security
Security. I
outside.
mean,
Well, if they
that's
can
what-
say they'll definitely double the security,
Yeah.
I think that would be a helpful thing.
Well, actually, I am interested in knowing the security plan, because we're saying double it. So right now, I think we've got one person outside, so you're saying basically you're asking
I
for
mean,
2 people.
I've built out an outline, and it's very detailed and it's pretty extensive as far as the way we're going to handle the security plan. And security plan goes way beyond simply security guards, because security guards are only a piece or a part, not necessarily a big part. I mean, we have to
Okay,
have hours, we have to keep 90 days
Okay,
worth
you'll
of
have that.
security footage. There's a lot of things that come into this. I mean, we start with what's called a queueless waiting system. And it's a customer waiting system, which is designed to ensure that and avoid any outdoor queuing, that is where people congregate. So we'll be offering anticipated wait time in the event we're that busy. And they'll be notified by cell phone when they're they're allowed to enter the facility. And this is a specific software program that we are planning to invest in. And I can go into a lot more detail about how that works. We'll have online mobile ordering, so that for a lot of people, they will simply be coming into the establishment to pick up an order that they've already made. And believe it or not, in cannabis, that's a big piece. A lot of people go online and order, we package it, they go in, there's a separate counter, they walk in, walk out, and it adds, or it reduces the likelihood of any congestion. If in the event, we plan for the best or worst, which is in the event that we're full capacity. The QLIS system that we have gives an estimated wait time based on a variety of criteria or factors, so that you know when to come back, and that's when we provide you with that machine that will in fact notify you when it's your turn to enter.
If I may, what do you
yeah.
consider full capacity for
Well,
the
full
location?
capacity is defined in the C of O, and I don't remember what this is, but I'll provide you with a copy of the C of O. I'm just waiting for the landlord hasn't given me the floor plan to work off, and he hasn't given me the C of O yet, so I don't have that to give you.
Oh, okay, no, that's all right. We can probably
Yeah.
look it up.
Yeah. We will be implementing and using what's called a transportation coordinator. That's an extra person. That extra person is designed to manage the environment around the establishment to ensure that there is no congregating and no waiting. That's the same person who's going to be ensuring that people don't open any packages, don't use anything on site. They're not allowed. We get in trouble. Plus, it's just bad business to have people using a product outside of the establishment. That's very important. That's not something that's necessarily provided in the regs. That is something that we are going to ensure and that we're going to implement it. And that's going to be part of our security plan.
Okay, so is the transportation coordinator, is that person doubling as your outside security? Is that one person, or is that now two people outside?
Well, it depends. It depends on the crowd. It depends. When we're not busy, to have somebody standing out front we're just not going to have that. But in busy times, and we'll be able to assess when that is, we're going to add additional people. So the requirements talk about security, and it's your security plan. The minimum is one person. We're not going to just have one person. We're going to have one security or a second security, one security, second security, possibly a transportation coordinator. It depends on how busy we end up being.
Okay, so that would just be managed based upon just the flow at the time.
Right. Well, yes and no. I mean, we will staff people. We will staff people at times when we learn, there are times we're busier and slower. It will be evolving, but we will start with a baseline that's built in our security plan.
Right. Okay. But regardless, you will have one security person outside.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue, please.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so I have more detail about, basically the transportation coordinator is that person that's that I described, ensure the safety of customers, employees, make sure that the people are compliant, they don't use product, they don't open their bags, things like that. They'll also be responsible for ensuring access to, information. If somebody doesn't know where the local the subway line is, things like that. I mean, we think in places, more congested, not quite, you're a little less congested than other areas in the city. But even in those areas, we try to make sure that we have resources available to people to help them move on and away from the premises. It's very important not to have people congregate at any time, not only to you, but that's very important to us. And then as far as our security plan itself, there's protocol that we've developed. This protocol is above the minimum. It doesn't identify where it's above the minimum. It simply talks about adhering to security protocol, which conforms to the rules and regs. And in addition, we will be doing other things. For example, require employees to wear identification badges at all time.
Do you have a security manual or?
Well, it's part of our standard operating procedure, and we're working on a security plan component of that. There's a variety of components of the standard operating procedures, but it's not fully developed yet because and when I say that, I'm way ahead. So I'm way ahead of where most people are, but I appreciate the fact that as a board, you want as much information as you can possibly get to make informed decisions. So I'm going to work with you to get you the information that you need.
And that you have a security plan in place an employee manual, security plan, floor plan.
Yeah,
I'm sort of belaboring this point, but I have 3 young kids, so this is, I mean, the pre-K around the corner from the shop will dismiss at 2:20 every day. And people will be pushing strollers with their kids, and then there'll be tons of high school students all around. You said you want to work collaboratively with us. I appreciate that. I'm wondering if that's a good show of good faith. There's something you can do to adjust the hours so that that becomes less of an issue where you have 4-year-olds saying what's going on over here. And I don't know that your place is going to be a nuisance. I don't think it will be, but I mean, maybe you restrict that time period to mobile orders or something like that. I don't know if there's something beyond the security plan that could be done to work with the community. I mean, we have not yet, approved one of these. And so if we are advised that we'd like to approve one of these. So if we say, go ahead right now, then we're not going to have the opportunity to go back and say that again. And I'm sorry, I'm sort of beating a dead horse here, but I'm just wondering what accommodations you might be willing to make, particularly in that area, which is extremely highly trafficked at that time of day, with teenagers. And, just statistically, kids get in trouble between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. when their parents are still working. And most families have 2 parents working. So they don't get in trouble at 6 p.m. most of the time on weekdays. They get in trouble in the early afternoons when they're with their friends and there's peer pressure. So anyway, I've said my piece. But.
yeah, I've never actually heard that before. Not that it doesn't exist. So I've never really had to think about collaborative ways. I don't know that we could survive by closing for hours during the middle of the day.
I hear that. I understand that. I'm just wondering.
But if you were to tell me there was a window, like a half an hour window, a 45-minute window, then it's something we could figure out a way to deal with. But keep in mind that this is, it's not, I think that part of it, maybe when you see what the front's going to look like, it'll be, you're not going to be able, it's not going to be attractive. Like you're not going to be able to see into the store. Right now you can, because it's glass doors. So you're not going to be able to see into the store. They're going to have to be frosted. So there's really not going to be anything that's going to make it attractive. That's going to be any different.
I frankly have is that right now it's legal to smoke in certain areas on the sidewalk. And so I know you said that you're going to try to prevent people from consuming the product right outside your doors. And I know you'll have security to do that. But I'm not sure what legal basis you have for saying people can't do that. They can't smoke in the parks. They can't smoke within, 100 feet of a hospital or whatever. But on the sidewalk, people can smoke, and people do smoke marijuana all the time in the city. And so I'm wondering how that works when you have tons of school kids walking by and somebody says, okay, well, I'll just move over one store down, after I purchase the product from you. I don't know that you're going to have a ton of car customers in Bay Ridge. I'm not sure what the demographic is going to be for that, but.
Well, yeah. So, I in my experience, I have, people don't necessarily walk out of the store and open up their packets. They just don't. But understanding that people can come by, generally smoke anywhere they can smoke cigarettes in New York City. So I get that. But for us, our protocol is not going to allow our customers to stay or open their bags and smoke in front of our establishment. It's not going to happen. Now, can they go down the street? Yeah, they can do that now.
Okay.
So yes, there are limitations, but I do have the ability. Part of my security plan is going to be to ensure that patrons don't remain on the premises.
Okay.
And premises, remember, they have in the store is one thing, but the premises include the sidewalk in front of the establishment and any parking space in front of the establishment. So I do have that ability.
Mr. Cooper, go ahead, Laura.
I think it would go a long way. And so I appreciate, that you've worked out the hours. And I guess we can amend that information to present to the board accordingly. But I really think that I would like to see your proposed floor plan, a proposed rendering for the front. I'd like to know about your security plan. And when I talk about, I think that, when we're talking about a security plan, obviously, you've given the broad sweeping strokes, which I think we could expect many of those things because they're required by law. But I think really what the board's going to be looking for is really your sort of the front of the house security plan in terms of they're going to want to hear, many of the things that you said. For example, that you have a security guard outside, you have, the locked foyer area, that, the product will be kept in the back, things of that nature. and the way that the product is going to be handled. That you're going to have on-site sales and you're going to have delivery and pickup. Pickup, I'm assuming, I do have a few questions about that because we were talking about, you know, you might have someone who would handle a transportation coordinator in terms of, you know, pickup. You know, I don't know if you would manage that through your QS waiting system as well, because, you know, you're gonna have people running in for pickup, right? And then you're gonna have customers. I don't know, you know, if they,
Double parking the car.
I guess, you know, how that would be handled, and I guess that would be on a volume basis, but it might be something that you want to be prepared to answer for the full board, because I think there's going to be a lot of questions on Monday. We have a lot of questions now. That honestly, you know, I'm hearing that this is a work in progress, but we need some fodder in order to pass on this. You know, some information about the employee training that you plan on having in place. I think people would be interested in hearing that. You know, about training for your security guards, whether they're trained, you know, whether or not they're licensed, whether or not maybe they're bonded. You know, obviously the hours, but I think that information like that, I would be very interested in hearing. And I understand that, you know, you may have that in a greater or lesser extent, but I really do think that if you could send it over before Monday's meeting, I think it would go a long way in helping you.
I appreciate everything you're asking for.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't, it's that, you know, I try to make sure that I have, when you suggest I don't have the detail, I have way more detail than 99% of the people you're ever going to hear from.
Right.
So I'm happy to do everything I can. Just so you understand that the application window closes on Monday at 5 o'clock. We've been working pretty much 18 hours a day. I do work for OCM. I work for a not-for-profit. I do this volunteer work.
I know that, but
So I'm gonna do everything I can, but what I'm gonna say is that, you know, the kind of detail you're asking me for on the security plan is just, it's almost a final security plan, and I'm not.
Understanding. I
Sorry?
think you're understanding. We are not asking for extensive detail. We're asking for some basic information that had it been provided, we would have been finished a long time ago. So we're not asking for anything extensive.
it was on the
We
questionnaire.
appreciate,
On
what?
the question.
It was on the questionnaire.
Security, wait,
This is not a time for argument, I'm
no, but
sorry.
it's not on the questionnaire. You have a floor plan on the questionnaire. You have an employee manual on the questionnaire. There's no request for security protocol, security plan, or a site plan. But I'm going to do that because it's important that you have it.
Copy of floor plan.
A floor plan,
Yes.
yeah.
The
Copy of
floor plan is very different than a security plan.
That's true. The security plan was not on the questionnaire, but the floor plan was, the employee manual was. I mean, we could just go through it again, but I guess that's about, it sounds like that's about as far as we're going to get this evening. I think Monday, the board will vote. I don't know, Chris, take it away.
Yeah. Are there any questions from the guys on the Zoom call?
I wrote down the name Vincenzo Campazano for some reason. Now I don't remember why I did. Mr. Cooper, what was that?
Vincenzo Campazano is one of the partners. It's Naomi Ortiz and Vincenzo Campazano who own High of Brooklyn. That is your applicant. Vincenzo is 49%, Naomi's 51%. So you're correct. They're both owners. They're the two owners of the entity.
Thank you.
Is there any members of the public on the call?
Yes, we have a question.
Go ahead.
Michael Farrell, we're recognizing you. You should be able to speak now. Do you have a question regarding this application?
I do. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead,
Yes,
Michael.
Michael.
Thank you to the committee for recognizing my question. I do have quite a few things that I've written down here. Can I ask how much time I have to speak with Mr. Cooper?
It's a couple of minutes. Go ahead, Michael.
Sure,
Start.
yeah. So one of the big things I wanted to address was you mentioned you'll police against fake IDs using ID scanning systems connected to connected to national or state databases. And can you account for the imperfection of these systems in any way? And anybody or any fake IDs slipping through the cracks?
Well, I can't necessarily speak to the possibility that there's a flaw. I can tell you that these systems are I'm told, foolproof. The integrity of the program relies on it, because not only does it rely on it to the extent that we rely on it to ensure that people under 21 don't have access, but we rely on it to maintain the requirement and regulations that restrict sales to a maximum of 2 ounces per visit and 3 ounces per day. And that's not specifically at our establishment, but that's at any place in the state.
Michael, you had another question? Go.
Yes. Is there any internal policing or internal safeguards against your corporate or company buying structure inadvertently supporting the cannabis black market, however it may exist?
Yeah, so the program that New York State uses is called BioTrack. BioTrack is a seed to sale tracking system. That means every single ounce of cannabis is tracked from its cultivation to processing and manufacturing to distributor to retailer to end user, whether that retail is through on-site sales or delivery, whether it's done through delivery by the retailer or ultimately done by delivery through a delivery service. That's a license type that we will have in New York, but we haven't yet developed the regulations around it. So the tracking system ensures that we know exactly where it starts and where it ends. And you're great. It's a great point, because there are markets such as Oregon and California that their legal regulated cultivators are supplying product to other states illegally. New York has built their regs so it limits the possibility that happens.
Cooper, hold on.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Earlier you mentioned, this will be my last one, committee.
Yes.
Earlier you mentioned that you're going to be utilizing, or your client will be utilizing, a variety of techniques to gain data to build a user email list or a potential client email list, and that'll be your form of marketing. Has your client made any statement to vowing to prevent usage of data phishing or social engineering to gain this data about potential users? And could that be a possible security risk or public safety risk we're opening?
Well, so when you say that, when we talk about data, we're aggregating data. So for example, if you fill out a questionnaire online, sorry?
Sourced from where?
Wherever it is. So my point is, we're not buying lists or anything like that.
They're relevant for us, okay? So I'm going to cut you off right there. All right. Any other person?
No.
Okay. So that being said,
Do we don't have any questions from any of them?
No, there's no board members. Any questions? No.
any motions?
What is
Well,
our?
why don't we
could you
open this?
clarify our role?
Forming an opinion.
I mean, it's just, it would be like just the same way we do it
The liquor
for everything
license.
else, yeah,
Yeah,
we
we wanna-
basically
We want to
make a motion, but I mean, I feel at this point, I mean, I wouldn't really be moving.
To
It's
approve or deny.
it's difficult for me at this point, to move to deny unless, I mean, I would love to do deny unless, provide some steps, but the only step I've got right now that I could even think about is the hours. Outside of that, I feel that we don't really have, in terms of
the particulars.
the particulars about these premises, enough information to say one way or the other. There are no specifics provided here. So, as to the location, I guess we've had a lot of input on that. As to these premises specifically, do we know what the front is going to look like outside of what, is legally regulated?
We don't have a picture.
No, we don't. We don't know what the floor plan is going to look like. We don't have the number of individuals who would be permitted, the maximum number of individuals who would be permitted on the CO.
Oh, and CO is
so in order
40
to,
people.
it's 40 people?
Yeah, it was a bank.
Okay.
It was a bang.
So now with that information that Josephine has provided, with that, with 40 people being permitted on the premises, maybe that would give us a little more information in order to feel, okay, from what we've got now, right? We've got 40 people allowed in the premises. We've got so far,
They're not gonna let 40 people in at a time.
well,
They
There's
can.
30 people in at a time, 10 employees, I
Well-
think, 20 employees.
Well, still, it's still 40 people.
It's-
There's
I
not
mean-
gonna be, there's not gonna be, when I say 20 employees, it's not gonna be all at the same time. So,
right. So, and then basically what he said previously was, maximum occupation, like, so he was saying if they were going to employ, someone to help a transportation person to get people to move along, it's basically if you're at maximum capacity. And I said, what would maximum capacity be? What they
So
would
could
consider? And
we-
he said, what's on the COs? That's 40
Mhm.
people.
Okay.
That, so, I mean, I can only go with the information that's been provided to us by this applicant. So I'm thinking, okay, that tells me 40 people, right? So if it's up to 40 people, now maybe they would then start, using more staff to disperse, more staff to, or use some of their tools to regulate the number of people that they're going to have coming in.
So then people be waiting
So-
online outside?
Well, he said they would
They-
use their, they would
queue.
use their
Queue
queuing
system.
The budget
system so that, they would text people when they're ready. Now, I don't know if that would actually, I mean, and assuming they would use their transportation coordinator to not have people loiter in front. I mean, I'm just only going by what Mr. Cooper said. I'm hoping that those things would be used, but normally what we would do, when we're doing this is we would say, hey, okay, great. So, normally an applicant says something to us like, well, if that were the case, we would stipulate to doing this, and these would be our stipulations. But
I think we
not
can have
having,
stipulations. Approve unless. These things are
yeah, no, we can,
adhered to.
Sure.
The things that we think should be adhered to.
right, well, I mean, I think the hours of operation, I think I feel that they're reasonable.
Okay.
I am concerned with the kids coming and going, but I personally don't feel that these type of establishments really, if they're run properly,
I know.
they don't really,
Yeah.
once they don't really lend themselves to like little kids. If they're that little, they don't even know what's going on. And if the place is, if, as long as you don't have people loitering outside and everything, I'm not really as worried about that because it's not like people are going to be smoking here. It's just, they're walking away with a package. Or having it delivered. So I feel that the hours of operation are reasonable, considering,
We start putting a list of stipulations together.
yeah, it's a business. So I mean,
One
one-
of them being.
yeah, I would,
People not congregating
yeah,
in front of the place. Adhering to the number of people that are allowed to be inside. We could stipulate those kinds of things.
yeah. And I would suggest, or I would propose, that we move to, I don't really think that we have to phrase it deny unless, but we can't hurt. Unless the following stipulations are met, and they've already agreed,
On the hours of operation.
on the hours of operation proposed.
New York State guidelines have to be met.
No, because the state guideline says
Both
they
of
can be
cannabis management.
100 hours a week. We're asking them to stay with 70, and they're willing to do that.
Okay.
So the hours of operation will be,
What is?
Yeah, the
No
state
more than 70
guideline,
hours.
basically
nobody
the
will congregate.
rule that where the 70 kicks in is that a municipality cannot restrict to less than 70. Basically, they can't put in effect a rule that in essence puts the place out of business by limiting the number of hours. So that's, yeah. But they can agree to less than 70. They've agreed to keep it at the 70, which is, I feel reasonable. I think that, if anybody else has anything
No
else
smoking
that they,
permitted on the premises?
I don't think it's permitted anyway, but that's fine, but I do think some of the things that
Mhm.
we've heard, if we want to talk about maybe making them into stipulations, like, okay, you will disperse people from,
Definitely.
from standing
Yeah,
outside,
nobody
you
else.
will employ.
And you can only ask them to
Security.
disperse their clientele, because that is
Yeah.
the route to.
Well, of course, yeah.
The buses, and people do hang out there on that corner, it's a bad
Mhm.
corner. So you're going to have people leaving restaurants, and you sit in the car and people are smoking pot
Okay.
from their car.
Just-
So it's just their clientele, you will ask them to please move on, they will
So-
not congregate outside. You
So
won't-
people congregate outside, your security will disperse them.
Right.
Security personnel will disperse.
Yeah, so they'll definitely have one security guard outside. They will use security guard and or transportation manager to disperse.
I have a question.
Mhm.
What happens if we're not ready to vote today or even Monday because all the information is not available? What happens after that? Is the applicant can go beyond the community board without our recommendation? Or
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the issue.
Yes.
The Office of Cannabis and Management, community boards have a 30-day review with a one-time 30-day extension. So we received this application on October 24th. We did request and were granted an extension. So we have to provide OCM with a recommendation by December 24th. And in order to comply with that, we have to submit a recommendation by our board meeting, which is on Monday.
okay,
So this,
he
yeah.
the representative did mention that 5 o'clock Monday was the deadline for the application, so we only meeting on Monday night. So how he's going to treat that window gap?
He's already applied.
He's already applied.
He's already applied. Okay.
Yeah, no, sir, I was suggesting that it would be hard for me to complete our SOPs, including security plan and site plan analysis, because we're busy with applications. That's what we do. So that's the only reference. We've already applied. We just have to wait. We get a priority review with regard to timing. It's our understanding that OCM is going to start to issue licenses mid-January, early February. That's what we were told, but things have changed repeatedly. So I'm not necessarily relying on that, but I wanted to give you an idea of what their time was.
I appreciate that. So I have one question. So what happens if we agree tonight or Monday night? Is it going to be treated similar to liquor and license, where our objections or our recommendations are written on the license, or is something that
It's part of the record. I don't know if it's part of the license.
The STIPS.
That's part of the application.
So you would give an advisory opinion basically to OCM.
Correct.
The stipulations we agreed to are stipulations we're bound by. So what we've done in the past with other community boards has been approved subject to, and then we comply with whatever stipulations
I
we agree
understand
to.
what you're trying to say, but let's say today we agree for you to operate 70 hours a week, and in reality you're not. You're operating 90 hours a week. The enforcement agency that comes in doesn't know what the stipulation is because it's written no place. And who's there to enforce, that? I'm sorry.
I need no, basically. Who's
Okay.
representing.
How is that is going to be,
Stip them out.
who's going to know?
So as
Well-
far as the stipulation, I got. That was
If you're
a-
if you're
Well,
asking,
so that would be-
Could we focus on this?
Yeah, I mean, well,
No smoking permitted. If people congregate outside, your security personnel will disperse.
Would it be possible to, I don't know if this is procedurally possible, but to have them come back in, say, 6 months before this board and just see how it's going? Because I know we're in a rush now. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe have that be part of the
just to
step, say,
voluntarily,
yeah,
if
and say,
there's any issues.
let's check
come
with the
back and
hours
review.
and how that's going. I mean, I
I
hear what.
would just,
probably
I
not
would
like to
expect,
speak,
I would
but
expect us to
no.
have a dialogue before 6 months, to be honest with you. I would expect us to have a dialogue before we open. If we're granted a license, I would expect us to have a dialogue when we're open. I would
Yeah, but
expect us to have a dialogue within 30 days of our opening, because I need to know from your perspective that we're doing everything right.
Okay, so
Let's just continue. with
let's,
this.
yeah, so let's go to the, I would propose it would go to the stipulated hours.
Mhm.
I would, I agree with Mr. Cooper. And maybe we could stip that, we review, come back and review and discuss prior to opening when he has things more solidified in terms of, you know, security, whatever. Issues that we might want to go over that they agree to meet, and review their plan with the board. And then again, come back, 30 days after opening on or about, to discuss, you know, any community concerns or issues that have been raised. That they
believe
will
this is
have,
going to be an ongoing relationship, and I think that while we try to get it right initially, in my experience, there are going to be things that we're both going to need to, we're all going to need to talk about, and we're going to need to fix or tweak. And having an open dialogue allows us to do that.
yeah, excellent.
Okay.
I would, that they are, there will be having delivery services, through a car or, you know, subway or other public transportation, their delivery services.
But that's not our stipulation, that's part of their plan.
Some community boards
They're not
wanted
really-
us to
and they didn't really want
confirm,
to
to
do that.
stipulate that we wouldn't do delivery using e-bikes.
By e-bikes, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't
Um,
want bikes lined up on the
Yeah,
side.
so that, because, yeah,
Okay.
that really does create congestion, I
Well,
agree.
that's why I suggested.
Yes,
Thank you.
yeah, and we appreciate that. And that, with regard to security, that they will have they have at least one security guard inside, one outside, a security provider and an integrator.
Well,
That they will have,
that will depend on hours and how busy, but we will
Okay.
have it if necessary. I
yeah,
can't.
yeah, you'll have it, not that they'll be on site every minute, but just that you have those tools. That you will have cameras in every access way. An alcove with ID check. I understand that you can't use the product at the location, but I think that it will affirmatively make many members of the board feel better if you just state it.
Okay.
I don't think you have any problem with that, but I think that
No,
it
we don't
gives
at
many
all.
people a level of comfort, just to hear it.
There's no
That you
taste-
will
no
provide,
tasting of
that you
this.
will provide a floor plan and an exterior rendering. Not really giving you a date on that, but that it will be provided at least, you know, because we're gonna be continuing this dialogue.
That's fine.
That the employee manual and or, you know, employee training, you know, it doesn't have to be chapter and verse, but give us, you know, an overview of, you know, those protocols.
Sure.
Anything else? Anybody? Oh, that you'll be using a QS waiting system.
QLess, yeah.
No
Same.
visual access.
What's that?
There's no visual you can't see inside.
Is that, you said that you wouldn't be able to see inside the premises, but don't you have to have a certain amount of glazing? Isn't that a requirement? Or am
Yeah,
I
you
confusing that with something else?
you won't be able to see any product from outside. So the glazing will probably go up about 8 feet. Or
Right,
6
but
feet.
aren't
I'm
you-
not sure how the
aren't you
doorway is gonna be built, because I'm not sure whether we have to change anything in the exterior. But
Yeah.
the regulations prohibit you from having product visible from the outside.
Right, but don't they also require, I know you can't see the product, but I'm saying, isn't there a certain glazing requirement that you actually have to have a certain amount of visibility?
Does that
That was my
fall?
recollection as well.
I've seen
I-
stores
that
that
was-
have no visibility. but-
I
think
think
I
that
read
was my
something on that.
recollection on that,
Yeah.
yeah, but, so I guess, we'll just whatever, if there are glazing requirements, to the extent provided by law, you'll meet them, because you would do that anyway.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure there were, I think that we had reviews that, but.
Yeah, I'm checking on that.
Yeah, if I'm wrong, though, no harm, no foul, because it's only meeting the legal requirement. Anything else, anybody? No. You won't exceed, the capacity provided on the certificate of occupancy.
It will probably never be that number, even if we did have that many, because.
I hope not.
You'll. I mean, you have to anyway. Do you want to put in there that they use ID scan? I mean, I don't know. Anybody want to add anything to this?
Yeah, let's put.
I'll put it in.
Yeah, okay.
People will hear it. Make them happier.
I think that would help.
Okay, are we
Okay, so
done?
we done, we'll call the question.
We're ready to vote?
I think that the New York State, when they built these regulations, did a lot to ensure that people would be more comfortable. And
No.
on some level, it's onerous, but not for the good actors. So
Right.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote? Can I make a motion?
You can.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote on whether or not we should approve this entity going forward towards licensing,
Provided.
provided they meet the stipulation.
Well, listen,
that were
we
written tonight.
deny it unless they meet the stipulations.
Yeah.
I don't know how, look, that's like an SLA thing, but it can't hurt to say it that way anyway.
Okay.
So,
Do I
yeah.
have to restate
I don't
my
know
motion?
that if you say denied unless, that's not gonna be
Yeah.
approval. If you
I
can
mean-
say,
We look to approve you.
With the following
Following
stipulations.
State Liquid's already actually asked us to do that.
the stipulations are.
Right, yeah, so
operation.
we're not really sure how, New
State
York
Liquid's already
State,
a motion to
yeah.
deny on
Can I make the motion again?
Yeah, I just want to
it's
read the
fine, you
stip.
know what you're talking about.
Real
Go ahead.
Yeah, hours of operation no more than 70 hours, no smoking permitted on the premise. If people congregate outside, your security personnel will disperse the
Smoking
personnel.
or consumption.
Smoking and consumption, yes.
yes, that's good because there are
Once
other
license
means
is
of
obtained, the
ingesting.
committee- once the license is obtained, the committee board may call upon the applicant to address any concerns within 30 days to review.
I thought we were meeting.
Hmm?
Okay,
To review.
I thought we were gonna meet prior to opening and.
I would actually expect you guys to do a walkthrough with us when right before we open.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so prior to opening.
I would want you guys to see how it's gonna work. So somebody should, whether you all come or whether somebody's designated, you should see how it's gonna work.
Yeah, great, excellent, we
Only if I get a
appreciate that.
sample.
Sure.
No.
What do we say about delivery service?
Right. to take-
No e-bike, no e-bike, yeah.
Just kidding. I wouldn't take.
Cameras in
anything.
every access
I'm not
point,
gonna take anything.
and the alcohol will have an ID check.
Yeah.
Product will not be consumed at location. I had that with the smoking, that's,
Yeah.
so I'll take that out. Provide a floor plan to the board. Provide an overview of an employee manual and training, QX access waiting system
Overview
We'll
of
have.
security.
overview.
We'll use a QX system.
If there are glazings requirements, you will meet them as per the OCM standards or requirements.
Any meet legal requirements, I don't know whose they are.
It would
Yeah.
be you could put MRTA, Marijuana Regulation and
Yeah.
Taxation Act.
Legal requirements, whatever. it is.
Great.
We're not like fully in
Yeah.
the swing yet. I don't even know
That's
what you
right.
can see.
And do not exceed the certificate of occupancy of more than 40 people.
Yeah.
And you will also have an ID scan,
Did we have did disperse
yes.
yeah, we got that, okay.
People congregate outside, your security personnel will disperse.
Okay, good. So we can take a
My
vote?
motion now?
Sure.
All right, call the question.
Call the question, all in
All in
favor?
favor?
Call the question, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Nick, are
Um,
you in favor? You don't
I'm
have
in
your
favor, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it was unanimous.
Okay, motion carries.
okay,
Thank
so Monday.
Monday is the board meeting.
I think I'm gonna be sick.
I will try to get you, I will try to get you the additional information or as much of it as I can in anticipation and advance. And if you
Yeah,
need
I mean-
anything, if you need anything from me, I will make myself available on Monday.
We have one more.
No, I highly suggest that you do, because there's, this is a new process for the board. I expect there's gonna be a lot of questions
Yeah.
and discussion, and so,
I
just.
expect it as well, and I understand it, and I appreciate it, to be honest with
Andrew,
you.
thank you for your
Thank
patience.
you very much.
Thank you for your patience and your knowledge.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's very important. So thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
guys.
The next
Thank you,
one.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Oh, the next applicant is My Happy Weed, located at 6817 Third Avenue.
Yes, that's Sheila Mark. I'm the owner.
Hi, Sheila.
Can you hear me?
Thank you for your
Yeah.
patience.
Yes, we
Great.
can hear.
Oh, that's quite fine. I'm used to very long meetings.
All right. Sheila, on
Yes,
your application, you already have a hemp license?
correct. Oh, I'm
Right.
so sorry. I have a cold, so if you
Okay.
cannot hear me, just let me know.
Okay. You have a hemp license. You provided us with a floor plan.
Thank you.
Provided us
Did you?
Uh,
I'm sorry. Do you want to speak? Yeah, you finish first.
provide us with pictures.
Yes.
Some basic questions. You gave me an employee manual. It's just like a boilerplate of a employee
Correct.
manual.
Pretty standard. I mean, we're a
Hmm.
new company, so
Well, how long at that location?
2 years.
2 years. You're not that new.
Yeah, when I, no, I'm not that new. I have some knowledge of the industry. Should I give you a little bit about my background?
Well, the other thing I have to go on first is on your website, you sell quality premium flower. Is that marijuana?
So we have sold marijuana at the store according to the law. Because before I even opened the business, I looked up the penal law, what the criminal aspects. So I
Mhm.
think if you can't have a certain amount. We've never had like 5 or 3 pounds at the store ever.
Okay.
So, and the police, before I even opened the store, I went there and I told them, here's my business card and I'm planning to open, My Happy Weed. They took the card, went around, to try to figure out how to answer. They came back to me and said, thank you, Miss Mark, but we can't accept your card. So I'm assuming and they've never, gave me a ticket. I think you can, the worst that can happen is they can write me a ticket for $250,
Okay.
the police.
But
And then,
you've been operating
sorry.
without a license and selling marijuana, though.
yes,
Okay. We also did a check to see if there were any 911 or 311 calls to your
Yes.
location, right? In 2022, there was one for selling to under 21, and 2023
oh,
also
one
an incident
moment. No one told us that. We never did that.
selling under
Ever.
20.
Yeah, because how do we know these things unless they send you a letter? I've never heard of this because there's so much information that is not
So
correct.
the other thing is, the other item is you're in. They're building a new school on Senator and Third Avenue.
Senator and Third Avenue. They're building a new school. Okay.
6740 Third Avenue.
All right. I was not aware of that. I'm sorry.
Okay, the building is going up. I mean, the shell is there already. It's you're 414 feet away from that location. And also on the Guild from the Exceptional Children,
Yeah, the guild I knew about, and I did the Google
Okay.
map. I'm assuming Google's wrong then.
You're 230 feet from that location, all right, on the same roadway. And that's more of a like.
See, that's the whole thing. I just use Google. I'm not really sure anymore. They have right angles and everything.
Mhm.
So I
There's
just,
I mean, you did give me a map of Google, but it was a
yeah.
walking distance around the block.
You know how we do it from direct, yeah, location, address to address. I really don't know anything. So yes, I guess you're correct. I don't know what else to say.
They're opening a music school on the corner there where the Circus Cafe used to be on Third and Bay Ridge.
Young School.
No, it's a music school, it's a community center though. It's called School of Rock. That's what they're gonna open there.
So
How close to telecommunications is it?
What was that?
Yeah, it says,
Right, so here I'm hearing that,
it
there's,
says the measurement is taken as a straight line from the nearest point of the school grounds to the center of the nearest entrance of the premises. Yeah, so.
So I didn't go out with a marker.
No, I know, but I think that, yeah, when you're saying you just drew a straight line, that's the right way to do it. Yeah.
right, so what I'm hearing is that we have several schools,
That's the news.
Two at least.
with one or two at least within that's not outside of 500 feet. And you've been selling without a license, which is illegal anywhere, unless you have a medical marijuana license, and there are very few of those. And you also have a 911 for selling under the age. So
You're also around the corner from the Gateway City Academy, about 300 feet away.
right,
What's that?
An after-school program.
that's a.
No,
It's an.
oh, it's a K through 8. and
Oh, there's
preschool.
that too, yeah. And
Yeah,
the-
that's one.
yeah, and the after school.
Okay, I have my answer.
Well, I don't really think that it's properly cited. In terms of the location, I mean.
Yeah, just on that
Yeah,
alone.
I mean, 230 feet away from the guild, I think that kills it, unfortunately for this applicant,
Okay.
just under the law.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I would also put, I don't know, is selling without a license something that can be part of our, or
Yeah.
that's
Well,
out
that's
of
part of our
our.
opinion.
well, of course, yeah.
Consider.
Any questions from from anyone on Zoom?
Any questions?
No,
Is there any public online?
Public? Yes, to buy, so,
Tobias, are you on?
Toby?
This applicant sounds very sketchy to me. She wasn't aware of violations. How could you not,
So,
how could you not be aware of a violation?
so sir,
It was a 911 call.
It was, yeah, it was-
Yeah, we don't know the disposition, but they
Correct.
were calls, and these are recorded.
exactly.
Right, but if the cops went there, there's a police report. and
No
they-
police came
pretty
here.
thorough.
Well, then maybe she's not there at all hours.
Right.
Were
yeah.
there other complaints? Community complaints?
The police did receive other community complaints.
All right,
Well, I mean, I think that, basically, the Office of Cannabis Management says a dispensary cannot be, yeah, so I mean, within 500 feet, yeah, so I mean, it's not
But
even.
the site was not, doesn't meet.
Just two.
Yeah, it just doesn't meet the legal requirements, so I would move to deny on that basis alone. And then if we wanted to,
And the other reason, just for
include the
discussion.
the other items that
Yeah,
came
I
up
wanna
with
add that
discussion,
to
just
the
as our
discussion.
advisory opinion, I
So,
would move to deny on that.
Is that
basis.
a motion?
My motion,
That's your motion?
that's my motion, Barbara.
Okay.
motion on
Would
the
you like to
floor.
make a friendly amendment?
Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Denial? Any opposed? Naomi, good luck to you.
Is she going?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
Hey, I did some homework, right? The other one, 86th Street, it's like,
It's a long way.
So the last one is done, the 86th Street, right? So we've.
86th Street, we're gonna put that off till next meeting. The way it was presented to us, the
Yeah.
way it was served, or I shouldn't say served. The way they
The
wrote their
notice.
application was just putting them in an envelope.
A
and then
blank
that's like
vanilla
four.
envelope outside that we found, Dorothy found it outside. the-
There are specific
So we're not
regulations.
actually provided notice in accordance with the,
Correct.
right? So
We're still
you
on.
found it
correct?
on the ground? What is it?
Yeah, no, we did, we
Found
found
it
it on the
outside,
ground.
yes.
Was it on the agenda or no?
We
It
did
was.
put it on the agenda
Then maybe we
because,
should just vote, just,
because we felt that, we should have an opportunity to reach out to the owner, because we did find it.
yeah,
And request a 30-day, extension. Because if this applicant proceeds to,
right, that's what I'm
Right.
saying. Should we just have a vote on record in case we need to? If
Could
he
we do
proceeds
both?
with
Could
the
we-
application?
should we do that and then contact the applicant?
Or we can deny the applicant, but
I'm
it's
saying we
based
can-
on
we can-
served.
We can deny, we could just say, we got this thing, we're not,
I think she has
Recognizing
the
it.
canvas legal. They haven't gotten.
They haven't
back
gotten
to us.
back to me, whether or not that's
That serve
I
was,
did-
I call it a serve.
Right.
It's-
Yeah.
Can we deny pending the outcome of the outreach?
I'm just
Problem is, we
afraid
didn't
that,
send the questionnaire out to them,
right.
Didn't have enough time. When did you get this?
and it stayed.
No, it wasn't enough time.
Yeah.
So we could ask for a 30-day extension, we could vote to deny now, and we could do both.
Well, why deny it if we want an extension?
that's it, because I'm just like,
Expect.
no, I'm not spent, I'm just not sure how, you
Application.
know, I don't know. when
They
can
could say that they're asking for the
Yeah.
extension and just.
November?
November
no,
30th,
no.
yeah.
On November 30th. So it's only been like a little over a week.
Yeah.
The problem is they didn't send the questionnaire out to the press.
We didn't send the questionnaire out. We did put it on the agenda so we could discuss it tonight, so we could
Right,
figure out what to do. I was hoping legal, when I asked the question to OCM on Monday at a meeting that of Brooklyn Community Board, district managers, the attorney that was present said, well, I think that could be considered proper service because you opened it. And did see the license, but let me get back to you with that question because I see the envelope was blank. It wasn't addressed to us. I mean, we did pick it up on the envelope just to see what it was. So I don't believe it meets the definition, but I wanted to be.
I've
What's
done
the
process
definition?
serving in the past, you know, usually
The definition says.
yeah, but that
The
has to go according
notification
to
has to
law.
be
What's
made
the-
by certified mail, return receipt requested, or overnight delivery service with proof of mailing, or personal service upon the offices of the clerk or community board.
Personal service,
Personal
so what,
service.
personal.
but
People,
service,
people.
Yeah,
That's what I believe it means.
you have to hand it to the person. Yeah, you can't.
What do you
have
think?
It's not a nail and mail.
You admitted that you received it.
That's,
yeah, but I mean, service is a creature of
how about-
statute,
how
right? So
about
when you
we-
use the word service
How about we
within
deny-
a service statute,
like you
right? I
said,
mean, like,
but then
you're
let the
saying, so
people
like,
know That it was denied.
I could say personal service
They
under the
have to
RPAPL, which is different
submit
than
it
under
properly.
the CPLR, and I don't know what it is here, like, does that mean like if you just like chuck it and run or something like that counts? I have
No.
no idea.
No.
So I'm saying personal service, does that just mean hand delivery? I mean, truthfully, if you're a community board, I would assume service to me means giving it to a person off at that office authorized to accept service.
Yes, I mean, that's how we
Right.
handle personal.
And I mean, you
service.
found this thing,
SLA license,
Right.
we stamp them in, the
Yes.
applicant gets a
Right.
copy, we
It's a
keep a copy.
procedure.
right,
Yeah.
and this was.
Thrown on the floor.
It was outside.
Found
It
outside
was
of the mill.
outside on the ground.
It was.
And
Yeah,
no name on it, nothing, just
No, it's
plain
blank. I
white.
mean, you can see it's blank, you know.
So.
yeah,
I mean, Dorothy's very much into recycling, she doesn't like to lose any paper, so she looked in it.
Can we deny an improper notification?
Submission and
It
proper
would be
submission.
well, where are they anyway? I
No.
mean, was any did we even attempt
No.
to contact them or anything? Like, what was the,
Not yet.
did they even like put their info on there?
So there's no, phone.
Where was the
an
location?
email
We denied
address.
on
There's no
location?
email.
Where is
There's
it?
no telephone,
No.
just an email address,
Oh,
No, there's nothing around.
nothing.
I mean, so how do they even expect us to contact them? That's ridiculous.
There's no email?
There's an email, no phone, just an email.
Is there a cover letter?
Very shady.
Yeah, there was.
There was a couple other, yes. Dear community, vote, please be advised that the undersigned is providing notice to municipality for dispensary license. The business shall be run as the regulations of the OCM and shall operate the business within the permitted working hours. Please be further advised that checking the proposed premise coordinates, the closest school is 1,500 feet away and the closest house of worship is 1130. Whereas there is no other licensed dispensary within 2,000 feet radius.
30-day extension.
Good cover letter.
So whoever we requested, who do we request though?
Yeah, with the extension, you have to send a email to the Office of Cannabis Management
Management.
with the applicant ID number.
Yes, I mean,
So why not inform them that we've
Okay.
requested an
What's in the
extension?
extension?
yeah,
But yeah,
And ask them to formally serve us, yes.
they have to be informed
yeah.
and.
Leaving it
their
outside on the
questionnaire.
ground
No,
outside the
that's
building
not-
doesn't count,
It
like the
could-
wind could have blown that.
It's
anyway.
Right.
Congruent, given that intelligent sounding letter.
Yeah. Okay,
All right, so
The motion
so
to
we'll
ask for an extension?
request the extension and
okay.
I would suggest you reach out to them.
All right, so that's a formal motion. We need a vote. All in favor?
Oh, shut the marijuana off?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, they can't get anything here too.
Can I ask a question about this committee? Can I bring up any public safety things here? Like, I'm just parking in crosswalks is out of control. all over the
Oh,
neighborhood.
business?
Yeah. That's, but it maybe that's. perhaps-
To ask for enforcement?
Yeah, that's for enforcement.
Yeah,
Because-
and you can always do that. I mean, I prefer, I regularly give areas to the police and
Yeah.
to. request
Specifically,
enforcement.
it's everywhere right now. And it just gets worse as the weather gets colder and it just, and it's gotten worse this year as opposed to past
You
years.
haven't gotten hit by an e-bike yet?
It's-
If
Oh,
it-
my God.
I know.
Did you look up the laws? Stunning.
Of that, aren't
They
the, restaurant
can't they
supposed
they
to
can
be
obey
taken
either
down?
vehicular
By next year.
traffic or pedestrian traffic
Right.
rules, pick which
Oh,
one.
yeah.
So
And if it
that-
goes under 20 miles an hour, it's a different rule. If it goes over 20 miles an hour.
But what that means
Oh,
is you
I
need to
think
do
How
it
can
every
you
week.
enforce
later
this?
than that, I think.
Not even enforce it, it's like,
I think by.
I don't know if you're
October.
gonna, if you're, are you a pedestrian right now, are you a car, I don't know which direction you're gonna go in,
The
right?
application's just gonna.
It's
Wear
like,
a helmet. You don't wear a helmet.
Yeah.
Listen,
What age are you?
If you have,
Oh.
you have specific locations that are recurring, I would say that to go
Yeah.
for the, you know,
Yeah.
those that are.
Sorry.
I mean, we have several locations that are high visibility, some that have
Yeah.
been blocked regularly because of outdoor dining sheds that we have asked for enforcement. Others that are near schools.
Yeah.
On the way to schools, like, you know, on Seventh Avenue, I'm just over the top. of
I'll
my
write,
head, I'm
I'll
just
start
thinking
writing them down.
That would be great.
Thank you, Josephine.
since you brought it up, the
Yeah.
outdoor dining sheds, they were supposed to be down by November.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that because the new applications haven't been let yet, so I thought that I'm gonna find that out.
Cause
Because
I mean, on the draft, it was like November 20th or
So
something
I
like
think
that, right?
sometime in
Wasn't it?
November.
Yeah, like it was.
I'm
supposed to
gonna
be
find
down-
out if it's this year or next year. That would be-
Because I see that
But I
most
just, wanna make
places
sure
have
you don't
taken
knock
them
it off
down.
that list.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
I don't know if it's before the application period in April.
Hello?
I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask that question though, because it's a good question.
Because I just assumed that they
Many
didn't
of-
have
many
to,
are
because almost
taken
all
down.
of them have taken it
Oh,
down. It's only
well,
really a few
what
that are
school?
left
Left
up.
up, yes.
Yeah, so I just assumed that,
Oh, fabulous.
I don't know, I don't know, I thought that. that's what the
Fabulous.
rule
I'm
was,
so happy for 'em.
But, so that was the old business, new business.
Okay,
Any other
motion to adjourn at 9 o'clock.